Welcome, everybody. No driving gloves again. It's Derek, John, and Will this evening. Will sends a little message to me tonight. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to be a little bit late for recording. I'm going out to dinner with some people." And then he drops who these people are. And I go, "How about a podcast guest there, Will?" And he goes, "I don't think they're going to be willing to do that." But we have Jerry Dixey, kind of affiliated with a lot of things in the street ride industry. And obviously Will knows him a lot better because he went to dinner with him and I sat here and cleaned my desk.
But, well, Will knows that I'm a quiet guy, but I've started to come out of my shell just a little bit, so he knew that he could throw it to me and I might be able to say a few words if you folks are interested.
I bet you wasn't quiet the moment you were born.
You're gonna regret inviting me to be on this podcast because I guess you could just turn the switch off if you get tired of me. But at any rate,
it makes it a lot.
Fire away.
It makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier on us when you just take off and start rolling. We'll just sit back and listen and laugh and listen.
Oh, somebody's got a doggy. Who's got a doggy? I thought I heard that.
Is that Will's dog?
What do we want to talk about?
Nope. That's my dog.
I don't know. We just kind of. I don't know if Will filled you in on how we do the podcast. It's just three guys sitting around like we're hanging out at a bar, having a beer, and we kind of BS about cars. We try to keep it family friendly and polite, and try not to use too many four-letter words. And we go from there. So, do you want to tell us? Go ahead, Will. You start. You narrate this one. Everybody gets tired of me every week.
Well, Jerry, I think.
Wait. I don't drink beer.
Well, then why are you here?
Oh, we do need a new podcast host then.
All right, so Jerry, this is a question I've always wanted to ask you. I might as well ask you while we're recording. How in the world, being you're from Ohio, Street Rider Magazine has always been based out of California, for the best of my knowledge. How in the world did you get hooked up with those guys, 25, 30 years ago? And
30, actually, yeah.
Okay, 30 years ago, and start this whole road tour. Whose baby is that? I mean, how did all of that happen?
Well, let me just tell you, my friend. It's an interesting. Sit back and relax. You said you'd let me talk a little bit. It's an interesting story. Back in 1987, way before that, but I've collected automobilia and nostalgia items for years. The big boy toy stuff, the gas pumps and neon clocks and the whole thing. So I ran into Tom Vogley, and that name may be familiar to some of your listeners, but Tom was the editor of Street Rider Magazine, the late 70s and all through the 80s and the early 90s. And I ran into him at a car show, and I said, "Hey, Tom, you ought to do an article about pedal cars. That'd be kind of cool. That's the kind of the hot thing back in the day, is customizing these little pedal car toys." And he gave me what I realized later was a standard response when somebody came up to him with kind of an off-the-wall suggestion for an article. He said, "Well, you look like you're the expert on this stuff by the looks of your display. Why don't you write the article? Then maybe if it comes out nice, we'll publish it." Well, he didn't know who he was talking to, because I said, "Give me a word count, tell me how many pictures, and what kind of a form you want it in." So I ended up putting five articles together, and the February 1992 issue of Street Rider Magazine was known as the pedal car issue. Tom and I became great friends. He had me write articles about all kinds of nostalgia items. Well, then in 1994, we did a project car of my own with my late great friend Barry Lobeck. I don't know if that rings a bell. Will, did you ever know Barry?
Oh yeah.
You knew the reputation.
I had a few toddies with him.
Wow, you must have been underage, my friend. But maybe not. But great guy. So anyway, Barry built and I built a car. His shop built it for me, called the Presto Rod. It wasn't a Resto Rod, and it wasn't a Pro Street Rod. It was a Presto Rod, the 1934 Ford four-door sedan Deluxe. I started driving it around, loved it. Tom liked the way that I wrote, and we sat down. It's just like in the movies. We were in the cafe at the Las Vegas Hilton at the SEMA show one afternoon, and I said, "Hey, I got an idea." He goes, "What's that?" And I said, why don't we build a car using our advertisers' parts and take it around to all the NSRA events around the United States, show people that you shouldn't be afraid of these cars, because that was the time of the trailer queens. Shouldn't be afraid of these cars. And if you use good parts, obviously our advertisers' parts, and you use common sense when you're building it, get in it and drive it. Don't put it in a trailer. He goes, "Man, that's a great idea." I said, "But who are we going to get to do that? We're busy building a magazine." Well, at that time, I had a custom van shop, and I had it for about 20 years. And I said, "You know what? Those young kids that are running my van shop, they hate me being there anyway. So I'll do it."
I got to interrupt. You had a van shop?
Yeah.
I have this thing for vans, and
Wait a minute. I sent y'all a picture of Jerry before we started. You should have known that, John.
Listen. Now, see, now we just took a hard right down another road. You better save my van day. Let me just tell you something. I'm 68 years old. I have been everywhere but the electric chair. I did custom vans. I built custom motorcycles. I was the manager of a slot car track in the 60s. So yeah, all that cool. Did I push some buttons there? All that cool stuff. So where was I? I'm getting back to doing this road tour thing. I said, "I'll do it." I said, "Let's build the car. I'll take it, drive it around the country, and then we'll sell it at the end of the season." And that's how I would get kind of compensated. He goes, "Man, I like everything except that selling the car thing. If people are going to give us parts, they don't want us to sell the car. We need to give it away." I said, "Well, okay, but I'm kind of out of the mix on my compensation there." Tommy goes, "Oh, we'll pay you." I said, "Hold up. You'll pay me to drive a hot rod that you're going to have built, to drive it around the United States, and you'll pay me?" He goes, "Yep." He said, "Give me a number. How much it's going to cost Street Rodder Magazine for you to drive our car all over the United States, all NSRA events. I don't want gas receipts. I don't want food receipts. I don't want oil receipts. I don't want hotel receipts. I want you to give me one number. What's it going to cost the whole summer?" So I sat down and I thought, well, okay, I can do the gas mileage. I can figure the hotel bill out and what that would be. And heck, I don't really need to get much money for having that much fun. So I came up with this number, and I showed my wife, who's a lot smarter than I am. The only mistake she ever made was marrying me 45 years ago. But she looked at that number, and she said, "That ain't enough." I go, "Honey." Now, you got to understand, I was living in Ohio. I'm talking to people in L.A., right? So she said, "That ain't enough. You're forgetting something." I go, "What are we forgetting?" She goes, "We don't know what we're forgetting, but we're forgetting something. And besides, after about 3 events, when I'm running our company back at home, that's her, and you're out playing superstar with your buddy Barry Lobeck, it's going to be a job." So I go, "Well, what do you think I should do?" She goes, "Add about 30% onto that number." Well, it was a sweet number, I thought, anyway. So I said, "Well, okay, I think this is gonna kind of blow the deal, but I'll go for it." So I flew out to LA, and it was just like in the movies. I pushed that piece of paper with a number on it across the desk to Vogley, and he went, "This is what you need?" I go, "Yep." He goes, "Well, hell, let's get started. We probably ought to make T-shirts and sell them too and everything like that." I go, "You mean you're good with this?" He goes, "Yeah, you probably didn't ask us for enough money, but we'll give you a raise eventually." And the rest is history. That was 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I have lived in Youngstown, Ohio, and got paid LA wages, and it's a beautiful thing when it's a good car, and I've got good friends that I'm out on the road with. As Jimmy Buffett says in one of his songs, some of it's magic and some of it's tragic. But it's been a great time. Now, the other fellas on here, Derek and John, you didn't know me till I just got started. How am I doing?
We've laughed a couple of times, and I'll say my fiance accuses Derek and I of being way too academic, so this is a change for the show.
Well, yeah, it's just this is what I've done.
Hey, curators aren't academic. Come
You
on.
guys wear dark horn. You wear black horn rimmed glasses, don't you? Both of you guys. I know you do.
Well,
academics. Yeah.
I would, but the fiance actually chose my glasses last time. So
No, that's good. There's not that there's anything wrong with that. But anyway, that's the story. Will, you asked me how we got started. That has been how I've spent my summers. I've driven 500,000, true story, 500,000 miles behind the wheel of a hot rod for the last 24 years. It's been a great way to make a living. I'm celebrating 25 years next summer. I'm probably going to step back from the program at that point. Street rod market's kind of aging itself a little bit, so we're going to do some different things. But it's been fun, and I'm ready to move on to the next chapter. Any questions?
where do I send an application?
Everybody wants my job. I've made it look very easy, and it's difficult. Oh, wait a minute. The question was that raised by the curator of the Corvette Museum?
Nah, he's got a good job.
No.
I was going to say, because that's the perfect job, right, Derek?
I think so.
Curator of the Corvette Museum? Do you ever have any bad days?
Oh, you always have bad days. Come on. But then you just go out and get in a Corvette and drive it, and you're good.
Oh, have you driven one of the mid-engines yet?
Trying to figure out if I can publicly comment on that. I think I just can't say my experience. Yes, I have.
I was going to say, you've already answered it with that comment.
Well, we were in Bowling
and there
Green,
there was a Facebook video. So,
well, when we were in Bowling Green last year ago, last August, there was 5 of them at Montana Mike's. Is that what it's, or the Montana Grill? Is that what that's called?
Yep.
Right across from the thing. There was 5 of them. And so there were people taking pictures, and the guys that were driving them were obviously GM execs. They go, we'd really appreciate it if you didn't take pictures of our cars. And we go, why do you have them out on this? Why do you have them out in the public then? Come on, please. So apparently there were some that have been out, but at any rate.
Exactly. So I've got to interrupt here for a minute. Oddly, on the podcast, although Jerry and I probably have met in passing, I just made kind of the connection when you said you were from Youngstown. You actually know my wife better than you know me.
Wait a minute. That started many a fight, my friend. It was her coming up to me.
No, do you remember Christine from the National Packard Museum?
Oh, for sure. Christine is my other Bowling Green girlfriend because she always welcomes us at the Air Heritage exhibit.
And
display.
Now she's at the Heritage Park.
The Heritage Park. Oh, sweetheart. Yes. So you spent some time. You spent some time in Youngstown also.
We lived in Garrettsville when we were in Ohio.
You can call that Youngstown. It's just down the road. It's all right. So yeah, that's I do know your wife, and she always does a great job when we visit the air park. Good. Yeah. Okay. Now we're all on the same page.
And you know what? I wonder how many times have you been to Barber?
I've only been once, and we're going there tomorrow morning. Dennis, buddy of mine that's running with me, we stopped on the Vintage Air Road Tour probably 8 years ago. What an impressive place.
You might have met John there too.
Could have. I gotta say I was.
I actually will be there tomorrow afternoon for a short period of time.
I think we're going to stop on our way from Gadsden to Biloxi. We're going to stop. As I said, I was there once, and the fellow that's traveling with me on this trip has never been. But what an unbelievable display of motorcycles, and And I think
Now you know what's going on this weekend there, right?
is this the Heritage Weekend or the Vintage?
Yeah, this is the Vintage Festival, so it will be. I'll forewarn you, it'll be packed. If you're in a car, they'll make you park off site, which is actually a little bit better. You will see more people than you know what to do with. They usually have between 80 and 90,000 people there over 3 days, and huge swap meet, 600 plus spaces. I'm not advertising for barbers. I'm just filling you in and giving you a warning that you'll see more motorcycles than you'll ever know what to do with tomorrow.
Seriously, that is this weekend, because I'm a member of the Antique Motorcycle AMAC, Antique Motorcycle Club of America, and I've always read about that event. That's fantastic. That starts tomorrow.
That starts, well, technically the swap meet people and all that are probably still moving in now. I would be there. Well, tomorrow is Thursday, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Friday. It actually starts on Friday, but you'll see a lot of it. You should be able to get a car in tomorrow. You'll be okay on that. But you'll see a lot of the pre-game stuff and a lot of things going on, and the AMCA and the VJMC will be getting their stuff together and that. So,
will the swap meet be open?
Kind of like Derek said about the Corvette. They'll be moving in tomorrow, and if you act like you belong, you probably can manage to make it there.
You mean that I would be able to help some people unload their vehicles with some vintage motorcycle parts? Hey, let me help you with that, buddy. Not a problem. Let me give you a hand. Any Triumph pre-unit stuff inside there? Because I'd be glad to really help you with that. No, that's a great tip. I'm excited now to realize it was the weekend.
Yeah, I think you'll be one day early for the big party, but
Jerry, being that you're from Youngstown, you may know Bruce Phillips, motorcycle guy there in Warren, Ohio. He's going to be down there, so I'm sure he'd let you help unload.
Bruce Phillips or Lindsay? I know a Bruce Lindsay from up in northeastern Ohio. Bruce Phillips, I don't recognize the name. Probably know him. There's
okay.
There's a pretty hardcore group of enthusiasts in northeastern Ohio with the vintage stuff.
Yeah,
it's
Bruce Phillips was the gentleman who put on the motorcycle exhibit at the Packard Museum.
Okay. Yes, that they have a nice display every year in the winter, January, February months, when we're all forced to be inside our respective homes and buildings. I'm excited. I'm going to tell Dennis tomorrow is the kickoff of the vintage days at the Barber Motorcycle Museum, which is a real coup. And John said if we mention his name and said that we're allowed to get in early, that would be okay. Okay, just pass the word. Is that what you said?
That might also get you thrown out.
That would have worked.
Well,
that would have worked last year.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
See, I do know the name Bruce Lindsay. I was probably can't say it, but I was actually trying to pull up my spreadsheet from last year and see if he was vending, but I can't. I don't think I have it on this computer. I
don't know if the name Lindsay rings a bell or not, but Bruce Lindsay, yeah, he kind of pioneered that whole 100-year-old motorcycle thing up in Ohio, at least. He's got an amazing collection. I was a member back when they really didn't like us chopper guys being in the Antique Motorcycle Club of America because we were apparently ruining their motorcycles. But we just made the original ones more valuable.
It's kind of like Will does to Derek's classic cars.
So I got another road tour question for you.
Huh?
The last 24 years, you've drove 24 different hot rods built by, 20 different shops and high-end hot rod shops,
Mm-hmm.
So of those 24 cars, including the one you're driving now, what was your favorite?
Okay. See, I always listen real hard when that question starts to come up, because there's a couple different ways that question could be asked. You didn't ask me which one was the best. You asked me which one was my favorite, because my favorite was not the best. And my favorite was the 1997 McMullen Roadster clone that I drove 25,000 miles. And for the listeners, I'm going to tell you what that car was. It was a replica or a tribute car of the car that Tom McMullen, that started Street Rodder Magazine and AEE Choppers and those two different companies, and McMullen Publishing. It was a 32 Ford Highboy Roadster, black with flames, the blown small block Chevy. It had a 3-inch foam cushion for the seat. It had no top ever. Had a moon tank in the front. It was a highboy, which means no fenders for those that aren't familiar with that term. And I drove it 25,000 miles around the United States, and it never had a top on it. And I was one stud boy. And it was so much fun. Again, I was 42 years old. I was a younger man. But that was a hot rod. I mean, you see that thing coming down the road, and you knew exactly. In fact, if you go to the Henry Ford Museum and you go into their automotive exhibit, there's a huge sign that says Hot Rod. And underneath that sign is a picture of the McMullen Roadster. That's how iconic that image is. And that was my favorite. That was a wild summer that I spent in that car.
That raises the second question. Which one was the best, most comfortable, you had the least trouble out of?
Will
made it without a glitch.
Yeah, that's a much harder question to answer, and I'm not trying to be evasive by any means. And by the way, the guys up at Lobex built that McMullen Roadster clone. That's a harder question as to which one was the best, least amount of trouble. Probably the least amount of trouble was the very first one, was 1996, which obviously predates the McMullen Roadster by 1 year, and that is the 1933-34 style coupe that we had the first year. Is blue with white racing stripes. Will, you're probably familiar with the car. Debbie Wallet Low Car owns it now.
Know the car well.
And that car we had 2 years to build. Following that car, we only had a winter between each of the tours. We didn't think the tours were going to be going for more than a year. Now that we look back 24 years later. And this is going to be a good way to wrap up my segment, because next year for the 25th, we are building a tribute to that very first road tour car. And the guys up at Precision Hot Rods and Fabrication in Macedonia near Cleveland are building a replica of that 33-34 Ford coupe that I drove. We're going to build a tribute to that. So isn't it funny how things have come full circle? We are now building tributes to the car that we built when we first started. So
you're getting old, Jerry. You're getting old.
Oh, you know me, Will. I am not old. I'll always be older than you, but there's always somebody older than me. But it's been a good run. I am going to continue to do some things in the street rod hobby, but it's been a good 25 years, 24, and then next year will be the 25th. And I have been able to see this wonderful country behind the wheel of a hot rod, and met some great friends, including the Posey clan that I just had dinner with tonight. And it'll all be in a forthcoming movie, and I'm going to call that movie Driving Them Crazy. Well, how's that?
Thank you, Jerry.
So you seem to have a plan, and you're not afraid.
No, I've got some more miles to go, and yeah, it's been fun, and it's going to continue to be fun. I've had a fun life, and it's not over yet, guys. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope I didn't take up all of your time with my tales, but sometime give me a holler, and we'll talk again. How's that?
Oh, no problem. Anytime you want to be on the show, let Will know, and we'll make.
Well, when I get somewhere next year that I think might be an exciting place to talk about, I will definitely take you up on that offer. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Thank you, Jerry. Be safe heading out tomorrow.
All right, and I'm excited about going to the swap meet. Yay!
Like I say, you'll just have to be, I'm guessing, Jerry, and figure out how to get there, but they'll be there, and those guys will be selling stuff.
I'll pull up with my custom 1955 Ford that I'm driving this year that looks like it just drove out of a car show in 1967. I'll beep the horn and go, you know me, let me in. I'll let you know how all that works out.
I've got to correct myself here because I think I said the wrong name earlier when I mentioned Bruce. The Bruce I was referring to was actually Bruce Williams, Jerry.
Bruce Williams. There you go. I do know Bruce. I do know Bruce Williams, and he's
I know another gentleman named Bruce Phillips.
No, it's Bruce Williams, and now I can make the connection. And yeah, Bruce has been instrumental in doing so many of those displays up at the Packard Museum. But I'm excited about tomorrow and stopping. Guys, have a great evening. We'll keep on moving on, and I appreciate all your help as usual.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Be
all
careful.
Right, guys, take care.
Thank you, Jerry.
That was great. I thought great last-minute addition there, I think, to the show, and some laughs and some stories, and how many of our listeners are kind of jealous or envious right now.
Jerry's,
and I gotta say, Jerry talked about things going full circle for him, and Will, I'm gonna have to probably get Jerry's contact info from you or from my wife, obviously, because I mean, there at the end, I mean, he full circled that I don't know how we haven't actually run into each other and know each other better, because he mentioned obviously Henry Ford Museum where I've worked, and Macedonia, the Precision Hot Rod Shop, is literally right around the corner from the warehouse for the Crawford Auto Aviation Museum and the Historical Society. I used to drive by it all the time. We've had to have crossed paths somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you have, and to be honest with you, if you've been around any type of car thing in the last 25 years, you may have not have met Jerry Dixey, but you've been around him and didn't know it. I mean, I honestly didn't really get to know Jerry until about 5 years ago, but I'd seen him since I was a kid going to car shows with my dad. You know, he looks the same as he looked 25 years ago. The bushy hair and always wearing shorts and always telling a story. I'm glad that I did get to know him, and it was just kind of a fluke of how we even met. So he was actually on the way to Crusin the coast in a 55 Chevrolet convertible and was having some trouble in Nashville. And a good friend of mine, Chris Sondels at Woody's Hot Rod, built the car. And it wasn't nothing he did. It was just some kind of electrical glitches that was going on with the car. And Chris called me and asked if Jerry could come by the shop. And I said, absolutely. So Jerry come by and, we were instantly, it happened that quick. And, of course, we stopped what we were doing and got him back on the road. And I wish I would have met Jerry a long time ago. But anyway, we're making up for it now.
I don't know how we topped the first 30 minutes of the show, but is there anything exciting or interesting happening in the news? Or car show go last weekend, Will? Or is that just, are you recovered from it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it went really well. We were very happy with the turnout. We said we'd be happy if we had 150 cars, and we had between 160 and 170. Still don't have an exact number yet. I just hadn't went and looked, to be honest with you. We had a post-car show meeting, and we hadn't talked about it since. So obviously we're already trying to make improvements for next year. Hopefully I'd be sweet if we could double it. I mean, I don't know if that'd happen or not, but no, it was a success. And following up with Hokes Bluff City Fest with Confederate Railroad topping out the night, it was good, and a lot of people stuck around for that. And we gave out some awards, and of course, we got some negative feedback about what won awards and what didn't win awards, and which is, I think when you hand out awards and you get a little slack, you done it right. Because I've never been a part of picking an award or several awards that somebody wasn't happy.
Say that's what I learned a long time ago. Somebody told me that's how you tell you got a great deal. Both parties hurt a little bit, and so.
Other than that, yeah, we're already making adjustments for improvements next year, and try to make parking a little bit easier for everybody. And I don't know, it went very smooth, being that we hadn't put on a car show in 10 years, and happy to, donate a lot of the money to charities. And
yeah, I apologize for not making it, and I can't say actually I was in Boaz, so I wasn't that far from you. Her eldest had a band competition, and we had to do band competition, and we met one of her old friends and things like that. So I had to do family stuff for a change. I want to say for a change, because guess what I'm doing this coming Saturday? Same thing. but I'm sorry I couldn't make it, and we'll get it on. You can get it on my calendar early enough for next year. I'm making a concerted effort to get to a lot more shows next year.
Well, maybe we can get Derek to put it on his calendar and bring something from the National Corvette Museum.
Well, it wouldn't win anything.
Whoa. What am I coming to?
As an attraction.
Why wouldn't I bring one of my own cars?
You could do that too.
Anything happening on your side, Derek?
Not a lot going on. Not a lot going on my end of the world. I've just been work is work as always, getting projects done, whether it be preservation projects or collections management or curatorial work, whatever exhibits work we're doing. Here on the home side of things, obviously been working on the 1919 Chevy, and had that, as everyone knows, up and running for Old Car Festival. Also took it to the local car show here in Franklin and had a good time with about, I think they said there were, I think it was somewhere around between 350 and 400 cars at the show, and had a great time. A couple friends with some early cars from the next town over came to the show as well. So we had a beautiful 29 Franklin, completely unrestored original Franklin there, and the only known to exist 31 Gardner Roadster. So some really interesting early cars were there. There were a lot of hot rods, a lot of street rods, a lot of different just interesting cars, some really cool British sports cars, just a great wide range of vehicles. And actually, the only disappointing thing so far with the Chevrolet is I was planning on today, we're recording on Wednesday evening, October 2nd, as we always try to record on Wednesday evenings. Today was supposed to be the kind of maiden voyage, I'll call it, to drive the car to work, and went to dinner last night with some friends. Well, Bruce Williams, who I mentioned a little bit ago, another friend of his from Ohio that have known Christine for a long time and myself for a few years. Somewhere along the way, a few of the rivets decided to let go on the leather face of the cone clutch, and now I have to go in and re-rivet the leather face of the cone clutch before I can really drive it that far to get to work. So maiden voyage put on pause, but we will get it there. That's the joys of owning an early car.
I would say burnout competitions from Old Car Fest. Was that it, or?
It might have something to do with it.
And for me, I, of course, haven't done much. Little bit of car stuff. If anybody has great knowledge or great Shelby connections, I need to ask some questions to some Shelby people out there. If you know anybody, send me an email.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, you need to go deep then.
It's interesting, and I can't say names, but I've got a contact, and I keep calling the people, and we keep playing phone and text tag, and it's a little bit interesting that I can't get to them. I've got another person I just don't want to necessarily call that favor in, but if any listeners happen to have any knowledge. I know there were two female students at McPherson that actually did a whole bunch of Shelby research while they were there or while they're still there. I can't remember their names, and I can't remember if they graduated, but I know they did a whole bunch of Shelby research for part of their intern project. So if you're out there, send me an email, please. nodrivinggloves@gmail.com. So obviously I've been playing something around there. Since we talked vans earlier, doing some suspension work to my new van. I knew I was going to have to do that when I bought it. A lot of front stuff. Now we're going to do some back stuff. And once we get done with that, and maybe we'll look at some wheels and some lowering springs and stuff for it. Today was my big maiden voyage with my 12-year-old car, 160,000 miles, and I did a 300-mile road trip road trip, whatever you want to say. So I was pretty happy. It seemed to do well, didn't burn any oil, etc. And hey, let's say the only other things, I threw up something, as Derek said, we're recording on October 2nd, so go back to our Facebook page. Threw something up today. A little bit of racetrack news, two different ways. I put a post up that's change.org or something, sign your online petition. Can't remember what the name of the speedway is in Huntsville all of a sudden, but there's a
It's just Huntsville Dragway.
Huntsville Dragway. Yeah, they are looking to have their noise ordinances changed for a drag strip that's been in continuous operation for 70 years. Some people decided to build a subdivision next door, and the people who live in the subdivision don't like the noise. We know how that feels.
Well, they bought in the wrong subdivision.
That's kind of what everybody thinks, and I've seen this happen to many racetracks, and one of the big ones, the guy just said, okay, I'll shut the racetrack down, but I'm shutting my companies down, and all of a sudden all the conversations stopped because he was an employer of about 60% of the local population. So they realized their mistake there. I don't know if Huntsville's got that kind of power. And then what was the other?
I think that the precedent should be set by, honestly, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because I don't remember if it was in maybe the 70s or 80s. The people who had moved into the neighborhoods around the Speedway in what is now known as Speedway, Indiana, tried to do the same thing, and the judge in Indiana basically looked at them, laughed, and said, "You built next to a racetrack that's been around longer than any of us. You knew what you were getting into."
And you would think the common sense would prevail and that would happen, but there's a story I remember, and I need to spend some time on Google and research it, where some people or a group built like 5 homes, created their own little subdivision. However, a train track went through the backyards of all the houses. And after a couple of years and a couple of resales and that, the residents sued, and actually the railroad had to pull their tracks up and move the tracks. Who was there first? The trains that have been running there for over 100 years, or the 30-year-old houses? And just got to pay attention to what you're doing there. So like I said, I posted that one about racetracks today, and then Zara posted one about an Illinois drag strip that's hasn't operated this year, but they've been in operation off and on for many years. Had $1 million renovation done about 10 years ago. They're going to do one race this year, beginning of October. $5,000 entry fee, and it's going to be kind of a raffle. Everybody that enters this bracket racing will get a raffle ticket, and somebody will win the racetrack. So if you got $5,000 you want to risk and would like to have an 8th mile drag strip, and you can actually relocate to northern Illinois, here's your opportunity. And just check out the Facebook page, and I got the article was from Dragzine, and again, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show at Excella Quarter Raceway, November 1st through 3rd. Minimum 275 drivers must participate for this to go. There's a little bits of interesting racetrack news today, and I don't know if we want to get into anything else or just call it quits.
Well, I'll jump in. There was some automotive news that I wanted to talk about. I can't remember what that was, and John, I know we don't normally talk about. We kind of all came to the agreement that we don't talk about people who have passed away or anything on the show. But the reason I forgot about the automotive news that I wanted to talk about is because, of course, we're recording on October 2nd, deals with historic vehicles, but there was a very tragic accident today. I think it's fitting to, at least say that, I'm very sorry to hear, and I'm sure John and Will echo this. We lost a number of people today in the crash of a Boeing B-17 World War II bomber known as 909. And it was a tragic accident in the historic vehicle world, whether you're automotive or aircraft type world. It was a tragic accident, and it kind of eclipsed everything I was thinking about today. So
now we need the high story, guys. We keep ending these shows on a low.
Well, SEMA's coming up. SEMA's been brought up in seemed like our last several podcasts. So if you don't have your tickets and you need to get out there and get involved and keep our hobby going. I mean, that's what they do. That's what they're good at. And
I want to clarify that's Will's dog.
Yes, that's my dog.
So what are you taking to SEMA this year, Will?
We will have an 05 GMC Denali, the one we built for Scotty D. We're actually driving it to SEMA. We will have a 68 Mustang that we just did the paint and body work on that Andy Leach at Cal Automotive Creations has built. And we will have the Rocket Camaro, a 1973. Basically, it's a street legal race car that was built for David Coker at Rocket Racing Wheels. That is basically a professional autocross car, track day type car. Those will be the three vehicles that we were involved with that will be out.
Are you able to disclose which booths are those each going to be in, or?
Yeah, Scotty's Denali will be outside as a featured vehicle. Don't know where it will be placed yet, but it will be outside. The Rocket Racing Camaro will be in the Rocket Racing Wheels booth in the middle of Hot Rod Alley. And the 68 Mustang will be in, I can't remember the name of the company, but they build the, Car Capsule, the Car Capsule.
Okay. Those are the inflatable quote car cover type things.
That's it. So, that's...
Now I'm going to guess that all of these cars have no driving glove stickers on them.
We can make that happen. Sure can.
I just got to run them up some stickers.
if SEMA will allow it, they're kind of particular about that. So if you're not a SEMA member or vend at SEMA, they tend to not want advertisement for stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure. I will definitely look into that. And see
just go ahead and figure out how we can get into one of the McGuire podcast booths, and we'll all be there in 2020.
See what I can do while I'm there.
Sounds good.
I'm going to bed, guys. So.
Yep, been a long day.
All right, have a good one, guys.
Take it easy, and we'll talk to everyone next week.
Talk to you later.
Woohoo!